para que nos presente y modere este panel nuestro querido Max de Mendizábal de la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, a quien dejo el micrófono. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, José Luis. Bienvenidos sean todos ustedes a esta conferencia del doctor Tomás Matheus. Él es un experto en ciberseguridad en general y nos va a hablar de un tema que nos ocupa a todos, que es la ciberseguridad cuántica. Y esto está muy de moda. Incluso una de las preguntas que yo le hice hace unos segundos antes de iniciar fue si él creía que era cierta pues digamos, la presunción del gobierno chino de que habían logrado romper la seguridad del RSA, el algoritmo de cifrado RSA, a través de cómputo cuántico. Y bueno, pues ya les comentará más al respecto. Mr. Matheus, please go on. You can share your screen if you want.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we
Very
can.
well.
Great, thank you very much. So, thank you very much for having me present to you. I hope I'm going to make this an interesting presentation to you from a quantum cybersecurity perspective for educational institutions. So what are we doing as educational institutions, or what can we do as educational institutions to prepare our future or current workforce? I'll also touch on different areas or different other technologies for which universities, or where universities can essentially help to prepare organizations, students for the future. A few thoughts about us. So who are we? We are a cybersecurity boutique consulting company. We're based out of the UK. We offer regular cybersecurity and then transitioned into quantum cybersecurity. We have clients in the banking sector, in healthcare, and critical infrastructure.
En las áreas bancarias, de salud, en la infraestructura, telecomunicaciones.
The services we offer spread
Los servicios que ofrecemos,
cybersecurity services, as you can see on the left.
como pueden ver a la izquierda, muchos de nuestros clientes operan con gobierno, el área de gobierno, porque hay mucha falta de legislaciones en el mundo, y entonces quieren mantener lo que están haciendo. Es una gran parte de nuestra consulta que va de la operación tecnológica, el Internet industrial de las cosas, esto va más con conformidad, seguridad. Ofrecemos la cadena de suministro y finalmente ofrecemos entrenamientos. Hablaremos de este aspecto un poco porque son una oportunidad de colaboración para nosotros. Pero ofreceremos
also cybersecurity transformations for organizations in general. An interesting fun fact about us, we're working on
un interesante punto de nosotros es que tenemos este proyecto aquí en la diapositiva. Hay muchas organizaciones involucradas. Aquí estamos desarrollando un estándar para la distribución para el mundo, para que se adopte la tecnología cuántica. Solo recientemente tuvimos una cuantografía de cuerpos naturales,
cryptographic approach, and so quantum key distribution
cuantográfica,
let's say hardware method by which we can
otro método con el que podemos asegurar nuestras organizaciones.
So if we look now at the question is, well, why would we do something in Mexico?
La pregunta es, ¿por qué haríamos algo en México? ¿Por qué hace falta? Este es el índice de ciberseguridad para México, que tienen un promedio de 38.33. Alemania ni siquiera está enlistado en el top 10, lo que es un poco decepcionante. Aquí hay otras naciones que están protegiendo sus organizaciones. Por ejemplo, los Estados Unidos no es tan alta en esta clasificación. Ahora, uno de los indicadores para México con falta de políticas, también contribución cibernética de ciberseguridad global, pero en la educación, cuando viene para México, investigación y desarrollo de educación profesional para México hacen falta. Por una organización estudian, así que esto nos hará creer que podemos hacer algo más con ciberseguridad en general para México. La pregunta es, ¿quién está enfocado en México, en las organizaciones mexicanas? Por ejemplo, tenemos este software de espionaje para recolectar información.
The organization I used for this
La organización está
says
usada.
that it is around North Korea, Russia, and China, but I'm sure there are other organizations who would also be
Estoy
keen
seguro que hay
on
otras organizaciones
data from Mexico.
que tendrán información de
These
México.
are the hacker groups, so they usually,
Estos son los grupos hackers.
as you may know, they come with weird names. Some of them have more
Tienen
creative
algunos
names, but these are
nombres,
really the main guys
algunos
who
tienen
are
otros,
after the data in Mexico, and that was
pero
done
aquí tenemos a quienes están detrás de la
2022
información de
and
México,
2024.
desde el 2022 hasta el
And then
2024.
this is maybe interesting, so which
Eso también es interesante.
industries are really most
Las
affected, and as we would
industrias
probably
que
guess,
están afectando,
manufacturing, yes. That's where we face maybe most of the problems in Mexico,
en
possibly
general, la
technology as
manufactura,
well,
tecnología
and
también,
financial services and
servicios
governance.
financieros, servicios para
Now,
el gobierno.
let's look at
Y ahora
cybersecurity,
veamos
because the last time I
las
talked
noticias
about
de
cybersecurity, we
cuántica
were at a conference in
de los
Brussels, and then
últimos
it was pretty much seen as
tiempos del 2024,
something very, very futuristic.
algo muy futuralista,
Where people suggested, well, is this
donde las
Mission
personas
Impossible 15 as in the movie?
dicen que es
However,
algo
if you look
imposible
at
como en las
some press
películas.
releases, then various governments and various
Muchos
large
gobiernos
organizations, whether
y
it's
muchas
Forum
organizaciones,
in Davos, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Forbes,
como
whether it's
Microsoft, Forbes,
Gartner, they are all suggesting,
Gartner,
listen, we
todas
need to do something in the
sugieren que
quantum
debemos
space. So
hacer
the
algo
messages we see across
en
the
el
board are
espacio
very
cuántico.
similar.
Todo lo que vemos aquí es
They
muy similar
work on risk assessment for quantum,
y
whether it's from
ofrecemos
a
evaluación
technological
cuántica
perspective in general, or
con una
whether it's from a
perspectiva
cybersecurity
tecnológica.
perspective. Now, what is a quantum computer? Maybe the first
¿Qué es una computadora
question
cuántica?
we need to ask. So
Es una
why
pregunta que
is it
debemos
so
hacer.
problematic or so good for us, for the world,
¿Son un problema? ¿Es
to
bueno para
have a quantum
nosotros?
computer? And data is simply processed in different ways. So if we look at our current way of processing data, we're using bits as in zeros and ones, and our names, data we're sharing can only be transferred in combinations of zeros and ones. And a bit can only be a zero or a one at one time. Whereas for quantum computing, we're looking at quantum bits, so qubits in short, and these qubits, they can assume what's called a superposition. So they can assume on a probability basis a zero and a one. Well, they say simultaneously. Now, because of this, this idea of superposition, the power, the computational power of quantum computers is vastly larger compared to the classical computers we're used to using in our current day-to-day activities. The quantum computers are based on the principles of quantum mechanics, and then there's also this idea called entanglement. So entanglement simply means that whatever the qubit set up in one area can have a correlation to another qubit area somewhere else, not really related to that location of the initial setup. There are promises associated with that in terms of encryption, maybe drug discovery, maybe solving very complex optimization problems. So to say, well, you and I, we are not going to go to the Apple shop and suddenly demand a quantum computer, which we can buy off the shelf. these quantum computers will be used for very complex problems at an industrial level, probably. Now, what are some of the applications? So we've already mentioned on the previous slide, yes, there are applications in drug discovery and cryptography, but if we look at the slide, then there are so many different areas. So there could be applications in chemistry, there could be optimized health treatments, we could be calculating more efficiently the power transmissions, we could optimize travel itineraries, we could look at this from an aerospace perspective in terms of materials development or reducing the carbon footprint. So for example, Airbus, they presented at a conference in Brussels that they use a quantum computer to reduce the carbon footprint of their wing production, right? And then similarly in the automotive industry, BMW, they were presenting something in terms of, well, our cars, they have between 15 or 13 to 15,000 features. What if a customer does not like, let's say, 1,000 features? So how can we then quickly recalculate the cost and the manufacturing time and various other variables associated with that very quickly so that we can optimize the remanufacturing or the redesign process of a car? The most promising, so what I've read and heard so far, the most promising area of the positive application of quantum computing seems to be drug discovery. So we can essentially assemble molecules in a much quicker way because of the idea of superposition and entanglement to find out, well, okay, what kind of new compounds can we put together to develop new drugs to help patients a bit better. And then, of course, if we look at the financial areas, so if we were able to predict the market movements based on a number of variables, which are now maybe too difficult to calculate altogether and quickly enough for classical computers, then that would, the JP Morgans, the various financial institutions in the world, they would be quite keen on doing this. So there are different, many different applications here. Now, if we look at the reality of things, then, well, does a quantum computer exist? And the short answer is yes. However, we don't have a quantum computer that has sufficient qubits available to do serious damage or serious good. So prior to the conversation here, somebody asked me about, what do you think about that the Chinese paper where they claim that the RSA algorithm was cracked using quantum annealing? And then the answer is probably, well, it may not be as simple as that, because it will take a longer or a much stronger quantum computer to do that. And maybe also quantum annealing, which is a particular way of running simulations by a company called D-Wave, for example, is maybe not the right approach, because we may not be able to move qubits in the most effective way to crack the RSA algorithm. Now, if we look at the IBM timeline, then initially they claimed that by 2026 we would be getting a quantum computer. However, now if we look at this revised timeline, which is here on the slides, then the suggestion is that by 2033 plus, we're going to get a quantum computer which has a sufficient level of error correction, or which can produce a sufficient number of qubits that will then allow us to go through error correction. And then we can then resolve various optimization problems, but also possibly crack our current public key infrastructure. But the jury of whether this really happens is still out. So the question then is, well, if the future is maybe so far ahead, well, why is quantum safety important? And so there was a chap called Michel Mosca. He's based in Waterloo, and he suggested, well, we need to look at this now, because we have essentially 3 dimensions to this. We have the X dimension, which is, well, how much time, how many years do we have for our data that it needs to be secure. And then we have the Y dimension, which is essentially about, well, how many years will it take for us as a world, not just in Mexico, to kind of transform our infrastructure to be quantum safe? And then Z is, well, how long will it take to build an error-corrected, a large-scale quantum computer? And then the red area, secrets divulged, simply indicates then, well, if we're not doing something now, or if we don't prepare, depending on our technological readiness, we may have a lot of data at risk. And that is problematic because, well, from a GDPR or from a data privacy perspective and so forth. So, and that leads us to one of the main drivers for the need to start some form of transformation now in our educational institutions, maybe, of how we educate individuals in the different faculties. So it could be the life science faculty, it could be the manufacturing faculty, it could be the computer science faculty, because all of these faculties and all of these individuals we educate, they deal with data, whether it's manufacturing data, whether it's healthcare data, whether it's data for that is being used in clinical trials. And we know that various actors steal that data now and they deposit it somewhere. But then once there is an error-corrected quantum computer available, then that data will be decrypted and it can be used for, let's say, ransomware. It can simply be uploaded on the dark web and sold for exorbitant amounts of money. So that's one of the drivers. The second driver is if we look at this quantum cybersecurity now, then at the moment we are relying on complex mathematics that relies on sometimes the factorization of prime numbers and the generation of keys that are being used to encrypt our data. Now, so far we have always extended the key size, so the key length, so to speak, that has been used to encrypt our data, right? Now, the issue with quantum computing is that, well, even if we have, let's say, 1,000 or a 2,000 long digit key that has a number of bits associated with that, then a quantum computer can reverse engineer this factorized number very, very quickly by using something called Shor's algorithm. But we need a quantum computer for that. Classical computers would take, depending on which source we believe, maybe 10,000 years to reverse engineer this particular key. And so there's a threat from a quantum computing perspective. Another driver is clearly the need for that we have current legislation in place. So as an example, I'm using here some of the US legislation in terms of life science cybersecurity, whether it's the HIPAA Act, whether it's the Fraud and Abuse Act, or whether it's FTC Action 5. So there are penalties associated with that, especially if we leak data, even unknowingly. So if we now combine the use of quantum computers with the use of AI, then there could be a problem associated with that. Oh, go away, go away, go upstairs. Now, we have a dog here. Then the second aspect, this is also then contextual. In the European Union, we have GDPR compliance that's required. And so the advent of quantum computing could make it difficult to comply with this particular legislative requirement. In terms of quantum computing efforts across the globe, many countries, we've just seen about 2 weeks ago in Germany that they set up a quantum computing center, which is supposed to be really advanced. But then across the globe, there are quantum cybersecurity initiatives, and many of these initiatives, they were looking towards what is happening in the USA, because they initiated a competition in terms of their post-quantum cryptographic algorithms. And NIST just published in August this year saying that, hey, these are the algorithms that are that keep your organization post-quantum safe. And these can now be implemented slowly but surely. It is not an easy task to do that. It is fairly complicated because many organizations find it sometimes difficult to even understand the classical encryption and where it resides. But for the UK, the NCSC, and for NIST, they are suggesting that, well, maybe it's now a good time to start understanding the current encryptions and then develop a roadmap for post-quantum cybersecurity. Now, what did NIST suggest? So NIST suggests suggested these algorithms you see on the right, so Crystal Cyber, Dilithium, Falcon, and Sphinx, and these are all variations of either lattice-based algorithms that are quantum safe, hash-based algorithm, isogeny-based algorithms, multivariate and coast-based algorithms. And so this is what is being used. We also know that these algorithms, as part of the competition, some of these algorithms were broken, which is quite normal, and that's why organizations need to also transition towards what's referred to as quantum agility, because the algorithms will be broken. We need to be able to install new algorithms over a period of time. Now, what can we do as educational institutions in this space? Now, we don't have viable quantum computers. We have a lack of awareness in terms of what quantum computers can do, whether they exist. So our version of the truth here is that we need to start with training and creating awareness. So at Cystel, we have created the first governance, risk, and compliance training course for quantum computing, and we offer this for different levels in the organization. So this is for practitioners. This is for example, for leaders in the organization who need to understand quantum cybersecurity from a high-level perspective to protect their organizations from unnecessary fines. They need to develop the strategy for their organizations to kind of then build a quantum roadmap. The second certificate and the third certificate we created in the space is a quantum GRC associate and a quantum cyber GRC professional. So these are different levels that can then join from an organization, depending on the level of proficiency they need. We can train them in relation to quantum GRC, and they can then help their organizations to implement quantum cybersecurity GRC practices. And on the far right, you see quantum transformation. So we can also set up transformation clinics, quantum transformation workshops with these organizations, where we then send our consultants to these guys and then help out. So this could be one avenue of pursuing of what educational institutions can help with to get leaders, managers, anybody really across organizations on board in terms of quantum cybersecurity. The second avenue we're pursuing at Cystel has to do what I call deep tech or deep technology consulting work experience masterclasses and boot camps. So this is not geared towards managers. This is geared towards students who are maybe currently pursuing a university education, regardless in which area. It could be in cybersecurity. It could be in any other discipline, whether it's life science, whether it's a regular business education. But the bottom line of all these degrees we're offering at the moment is that we need more STEM exposure. So science, technology, engineering, and math exposure. But we also need more work experience exposure. So practical experiences, because it's not just good enough to say, well, okay, we can do all these fancy calculations, we understand the theory, but what do we do in practice? And so here we're helping students to get an understanding of this. So how does that look like from a masterclass perspective? So a masterclass is essentially a very short introduction to the foundation of consulting, because individuals in organizations, they can act as consultants individually, although they may not be called this way, but they may be champions for a particular practice, for a particular activity in an organization. So we introduce them to this by using a fairly structured curriculum. Then this is also then based on project-based learning. So we introduce individuals to hands-on activities in these boot camps. And the boot camps, then they are a pathway from the master classes are then a pathway to a longer boot camp. We'll talk about boot camps in a moment. Now, what skills are we trying to develop? So from a deep tech perspective, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, we're trying to develop the analytical and problem-solving capabilities of individuals who attend this. We want them to achieve a certain level of technical proficiency in any form of emerging technology. So we're alluding to the fact that all of us need to be lifelong learners when it comes to different types of technologies. And because of the divide between, okay, managers, they have a particular job, but then these individuals who go to these master classes and boot camps, they need to be effective communicators, and they also need to be able to collaborate with individuals who are not so technical. And so we want to bridge that gap at the master class level initially. So it's the application of theory into practice. It's a feedback, it's an iterative learning process that we're offering here, and it's real time. So we're looking at hands-on projects in this space. One of the key aspects from a consulting perspective is really that we need to understand client needs, because we don't want to expose individuals to something that organizations are not using. So it's understanding client needs. This could be the internal organizational needs. And then it's also about navigating complex projects, because all organizations have different types of projects going on, and quantum cybersecurity or quantum optimization or AI needs to fit in somehow if the organization wants to stay afloat. And that then means we're building resilience, adaptability of these consultants, that they can understand these technologies, understand the challenges, and then develop effective solutions in their workplace. Now this master class leads us to what we call a boot camp, a cybersecurity consulting or deep tech boot camp. Now the boot camp is a bit longer than the master class. The master class is an initial step, but the boot camp is between 1 and 6 months long. It can be longer depending on what's desirable. It's very project-based, so the boot camps could be based on a project we are currently working on, where we can involve individuals into a particular activity, and they can then present their findings either to us, depending on whether confidentiality is an issue or not. They can then present these findings of their work to either us or the client organization itself. This is meant to develop progressive skills of individuals. There are different levels. So we have the associate consultant, we have the senior consultant, and then we have director responsibilities, and we can have boot camps for each of these individuals, so that we'll have a stronger exposure the more we move from the left to the right of these individuals. We offer a diverse range of projects. They can be in relation to AI, they can be in relation to quantum integration, they can be in relation to IoT solutions, but the main driver here, or the main focus, is industrial application, but also hands-on experience. And we're looking for real-world impact. So these are real-world projects where there is a client need. They say, yes, we have a problem with this. This is how we can fix it. We'll offer to do this because we acknowledge that deep tech is not everybody's thing. So we acknowledge that, well, we need to help these individuals who are coming onto these boot camps. And so we allocate mentors to these individuals. These are seasoned industry practitioners who worked with clients and who then would work with a particular boot camp participant to develop a solution. There are regular feedback mechanisms. There are also networking activities with other professionals in the space to really get the most out of these boot camps. What are then the benefits of these boot camps? Well, it's real world engagements. That's what we want. We don't just want to produce ivory tower individuals who then go into organizations, and organizations cannot use these individuals in a way that leads to benefits to them. Where we're allocating specific responsibilities to these individuals so that they experience real world consulting. And we believe that it is a very impactful learning experience. So it's not just about understanding the technology, but also the consulting skills that are required to implement this in organizations by liaising with different organizational stakeholders. These are some example projects that can be pursued. So for example, the implementation of AI, we worked with a healthcare provider, and these guys needed help with setting up a diagnostics tool. And so the time it took to do the patient diagnosis was reduced by 30%. Then of course, supply chain management is a very big issue. And we had a project there with a retail organization where we enhanced the supply chain activities. by reducing the exposure to cyber attacks substantially. And then finally, there was a project in relation to an automotive manufacturer where we tried to increase the production lead time by 40% using robotics in that particular setup.
Doctor, we just have only 3 minutes left.
Yes, okay. So
thank you.
There are also networking opportunities with other individuals available. And well, at the end of the day, we're offering also skills enhancement and career advice in different areas. So why is this important? Just to look at job growth. So we know the key statistics for job growth. This is tremendous, especially when it comes to new technologies. We're advancing ever faster in the space, and there's also an enhanced opportunity for careers, and the salary projections in these areas are very, very good for individuals who are making the step towards being more in tune with the kind of technologies that are being implemented in organizations. And if these individuals can help with that process, that would be very, very helpful for them. So yeah, I think we can skip over the remaining part and we can move over to the questions. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Doctor. It was a very insightful talk. So thank you very much. And I don't know, I don't have any questions on the chat, but I have a few if you want. José Luis, ¿cómo andamos de tiempo?
2 minutos, pero vengan las preguntas. Come on.
We just have 2 questions, 2 minutes for one question, I think, because it's very difficult. According to IBM, we will have commercial quantum computer in a few years from now. But in the meantime, what are the best strategies to get acknowledged with the quantum computer technology? For instance, for security in communications and things like that, how to get hands on that kind of technology.
Yeah, so one of the things, so we are doing that, for example. So we work on a quantum key distribution project. The things that we are doing, they don't exist yet. And so it is a way, and so on the back of this quantum key distribution project, which is funded by the UK government, we hire different individuals. So these individuals have PhDs in quantum physics, for example, and then because our remit is the risk assessment part, so these guys, they know quantum physics, they may not know the cybersecurity risk assessment part, so there's a dual learning strand for these guys, and they work with us on these projects. So for example, Toshiba and British Telecom, they have been working in quantum key distribution for 20 years. So this integration between academics or individuals who know less in the space with some people who are very, very prolific in the space is really important. The second avenue is to simply start small with maybe do a course on the side. If you're studying life science, you know that quantum will be on the radar. Any form of deep tech is on the radar. So we suggest individuals to do a course. They can sign up for our clinics. We could offer this collaboratively. But the idea is to dip toes into this. Also from a very early stage perspective, that's what we see here in the UK. We have lost this exposure to STEM, to science, engineering, technology, and mathematics. And so we need to go back maybe to the schools and say, listen, you need to increase your exposure to these topics because we need this in the future. There are no two ways about this for us. And so maybe understanding the basics, if we have forgotten them, how vector calculations, how matrix calculations in the quantum space work, right? How probabilities are then thrown in the mix. So that may be a good starting point. And then taking the more challenging courses or doing simply some reading in that space. But courses are usually good. And then we can move on to boot camps. We can move on to master classes and these sort of things.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Matheus. It was a very, very good conference. It shows all the aspects of the new technology is coming to us. So thank you very much, and we will finish this conference. Thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Mr. Matheus.
Bye.
Gracias, Max. Y muchas gracias a la Embajada del Reino Unido en México, Gisela González. Muchas gracias por todo. Un abrazo.